Oh, now it is. It's working. Okay, so it's preparing to live stream the meeting. Just give it a second. I was gonna be like, whoa, what's going on here? I've not been fighting different battles, but this one.
So, okay. President, you will share the link with me. Then I will share it in different groups before we start.
Yep. So I think we will be live just in a second. We are live. Please use the chat box. Okay.
Okay.
And now.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jacques Morinda. I'm the Vice President of Mahoro Peace Association. We're going to discuss a different subject today. And we have 3 guests who will be presenting themselves before we start. And then I guess we'll live already. So I would ask President Adele to present herself.
Thank you, Jacques. My name is Adele Kibasumba. I'm the president of Mahoro Peace Association. I look forward to discussing the issue of the ongoing destruction of the village and the livelihoods of Banyamulenge. It's a great privilege to be with you today. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Adele. I think we trying to get more people following us. I'd like Dr. Kaniki to present himself.
Thank you very much, Jacques. My name is Freddy Kaniki. I'm a member of the Mahoro Peace Association. And I'm very happy to be here today and hopefully share some insights on the topic. Thank you.
Thanks, Doctor. I'll ask Amber to present herself.
Good afternoon. I'm Amber Mays. I'm the co-founder and chief executive officer for the Crane Center for Mass Atrocity Prevention, which is an organization, a nonprofit based in Indiana. So thank you for having me here today and looking forward to the discussion.
Thanks a lot, Amber. Our subject today, we're going to discuss about the destruction of Bibogobogo villages. And we have been sorry, we were momentarily disrupted. Yes, we said that we're going to discuss about the destruction of Bibogobogo villages and actually how it is impacting or accelerating the genocide, which has been going on since 2017. Once again, for those who have joined us, we are live with Dr. Freddy Kaniki, who is an opinion leader from Mahoro Peace Association. We have the pleasure to receive Adele Kibasumba, who is our president, the president of Mahoro Peace Association. And we have Amber Mays, who is the co-founder of Crane Center. We have been discussing about what is going on in the Democratic Republic of Congo, especially the genocide, which has been going on since 2017. It's not a new topic. It's something which has been in the media, which has been the subject of this different discussion. And this tape of the destruction of Bibogobogo villages is just one more destruction, which adds up on more than 300 villages from 3 different districts or territories of the southern Kivu province. So the crisis, as we can just remind you, started back in 2017 when Mai Mai groups, different Mai Mai groups, together with foreign militias, Red Tabara, Forebu, and FNL, decided to attack and to uproot the Banyamulenge from all and every village in which they live in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Unfortunately, the uprooting of Banyamulenge is not just an endeavor of those local militias and foreign militias. We have documented proof showing that the government, through its military, the FRDC, which is the National Army, has been backing up and sponsoring the destruction of Banyamulenge villages and the killing, the mass killing of the Banyamulenge since it started back in 2017. So there is a clear plan which shows that Banyamulenge are targeted. And there is a national plan, we can confirm it because we have proof that the Banyamulenge want to be ousted from the Congo. Even the rhetoric itself of the leaders, like some populist politician, the rhetoric of the very same leaders of those militia leaders or group have demonstrated that clearly they want Banyamulenge to leave their country, not live, by the way, because they have been killed in numbers. Their cattle has been raided. The public infrastructures such as schools, health centers existing in their villages, respective villages in 3 districts, that means Uvira, Fizi, and Mwenga, have been systematically destroyed to make sure that the Banyamulenge won't have an opportunity to go back to their respective villages. So we won't continue far. We will go straight to our guest. So asking some questions and discussing exactly about what is happening in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. So I'm going straight to Dr. Freddy Kaniki, who is with us here. Doctor, I would like to ask a question about what is going on right now in Congo. And my question is, why is the DRC government not intervening to stop the killing, targeting mainly one community, the Banyamulenge minority of the Democratic Republic of Congo?
Thank you very much, Jacques. Before we even discuss why the government is not involved or actively involved in stopping what's going on, let's make sure we understand that this is happening because of the government. We have lived with those different tribes for more than 2 centuries. We have had our ups and downs. We have not always been in peace. But for the longest, we were in peace until the war, the Mulele War in 1964. But even with that, it never bared a genocide characteristic because the government was A, responsible, and two, it was involved in the right way to stop the killings and to stop the fighting. However, this is happening because the government is giving a leeway to those militias to operate freely. And whenever they intervene when they feel like we're gaining momentum in resisting the killing. So it's not just that they're not stopping it, they're putting fuel on the fire. Bibogobogo wouldn't have been what it is today if they didn't remove the battalion that was in Bibogobogo a few weeks ago. So first they pull the army out, they leave a vacuum, and then the Mai Mai come and they destroy villages. So somehow there is a collusion. And so asking why they're not intervening is even a much lesser question. The right question is why is this happening, and how is it possible in a country that has a government and a regular army?
Yeah, sorry, I will stay with you for a moment. You did raise very, very pertinent question, exactly the why is this happening for a government which has a national army whose primary mission is to protect the integrity of the country, but also to protect the very citizen of the country that they are actually contributing to kill. So I can ask kind of a sub-question. What is exactly the role of the DRC's army playing in the forced displacement of the Banyamulenge since the beginning of the genocide in 2017?
The first role is the inaction. They have been inactive. And so let me give you an example. There are so many army officers that are that are cited in different reports, UN reports, the human rights reports, as colluding with the Mai Mai, supporting the Mai Mai in terms of logistic and technical. Those army officers have never been tried, have never been punished, have never been replaced. B, there are politicians who incite people to violence, hatred in their speech all the time. Those have never been called to court to explain, even though we have laws in Congolese just on the paper that are not applied that would have otherwise stopped them. So people have been dying since 2017. Houses, villages, more than 300 villages have been burned. Not only they sit and not do anything, but they keep quiet. And at times they change the narrative of what is happening and label it as an ethnic conflict, just so they can make the matter worse. So to me, it's not just that it's the inaction, but it's also putting fuel on the fire. When you know exactly what the army is doing, you know that they share the cows whenever there are looted cows. You know that all the Banyamulenge villages have armies in army barracks and army positions in them, but the Mai Mai come and destroy in the presence of the army, and the army does nothing. So these are questions that the government should be asking, but no one is asking those questions. All they do is report, oh, so many villages have been burned. But what are we doing? Nothing. So there is inaction, there is collusion, those two elements.
Thanks a lot again, Doctor. It is true that many reports actually are stating the fact that the soldiers on the ground are actually participating and sharing the plight of war with the very same militias they are supposed to combat. The other thing is that they have been really turning a blind eye on exactly whatever is being done, because we realize that in areas like Minembwe Center, which has thousands, basically thousands of soldiers in different corners of the city, it has been attacked more than 60 times. And unfortunately, the very soldier who are supposed to protect, they are actually opening a window of opportunity for the very same militias to come in and kill and loot, because exactly they know that they are going to share the plight of war. And the killing of the Banyamulenge. So I will come back to you, Doctor, but I'm going to ask a question to Amber, just to remind those who have just joined us that Amber is the co-founder of the Crane Center, and she will actually present briefly what the center does to increase the awareness of the mass atrocities, to combat mass atrocities around the world. So Amber, what does your organization Crane Center play? What kind of role does the organization play in increasing awareness against mass atrocities around the world?
Thank you, Jacques. Yes, the Crane Center is very much, we see ourselves as kind of bridge builders between communities that are experiencing atrocities and the international community, as well as governments, the US, the EU, AU, and ASEAN, the sort of Asian nations. We do a lot of educational programming that aims to raise awareness about various atrocities that are happening in the world. Right now, we kind of have specific areas that we focus on, one of which being the Banyamulenge, and it's been wonderful getting to work with Mahoro Peace Association and Genocide Watch and others on this advocacy issue. And then, of course, we do a lot of advocacy. We try and build bridges between our organization, diaspora communities, those on the ground, and elected officials in an attempt to get real, sustainable, tangible change to occur.
Thanks a lot, Amber. We are really pleased and honored to work with the Crane Center. As Amber mentioned, Crane Center is our partner, together with Alliance Against Genocide. So we're really grateful for whatever you have been doing to help increase exactly the awareness against the mass atrocities or the genocide going on, targeting the Banyamulenge community. I'm still with you, Amber. I'm going to ask another question. It has been recorded throughout history that hate speech exactly is fueling mass killing, or has been fueling mass killing around the world since time memorial. And hate speech against the Banyamulenge is manifested really in different ways. We have either stigmatization, like exclusion, identity, or nationality denial, or call for massacres against the minority, the Banyamulenge minority. So there is a different form of hate speeches that we found out there against, especially against the Banyamulenge community. It has been mentioned that in a recent UN report, like a UN stabilization mission, the MONUSCO report, that more than 30% of hate speech in the DRC targets specifically the Banyamulenge community, and who actually are only representing less than 1% of the population. So it is no doubt that when we talk about hate speech in Congo, we see exactly the targeted population, which is actually the Banyamulenge population. So my question is, can you please share with us your experience on the role of hate speech in the genocide which occurred around the world? And since you have been working with the Banyamulenge, give also some observation about the hate speech, how they impact the population of the Banyamulenge being targeted right now, and how they impact the action being carried out by militias, both foreign and locals, on the genocide during which the Banyamulenge is going on right now.
Yes, so hate speech or dangerous speech really is kind of one of the hallmarks that we look for when we talk about the potential for atrocities. The two main facets of dangerous speech that I always point to, and we always often see throughout history at the very precipice of genocide, is, does the speech inspire fear against those that have been deemed the outgroup? And is there a form of dehumanization? Because it is often easier to commit atrocities against a group if they've been dehumanized. And we see these examples countless times again and again in Cambodia in the 1970s on the precipice of genocide. Those who were targeted were deemed snakes. It's much easier to think about killing a snake than it is a person. Of course, one of the most famous or well-known examples is in Rwanda, calling the Tutsi and Yenzi cockroaches. It's much easier to think about somebody or view somebody as vermin, and that vermin needs to be exterminated. And that when we start to see that process playing out in a country, particularly when there's also a fear, what we call accusation in a mirror. So somebody says, this group, whether it is whomever, the Banyamulenge, or someone else, this group is planning on attacking us. And to protect ourselves, we must attack first. These are examples that we've seen and continue to see around the world. As far as in Congo, I mean, a 30% of hate speech targeting one particular group is incredibly concerning. That tells me that we're no longer on the edge of genocide, but we are at genocide. If there is speech that is occurring at high levels, such as the government or even just community leaders, that is putting fear into a community, that is going to be more responsible for inciting violence than saying something along the lines of, we hate you or whatever. Rarely does that inspire violence. It's that undertone of, this group is different from us, and if we want to protect ourselves, then we have to do something about it. They are, usually, like I said, some sort of animal or vermin. And the Banyamulenge have been compared to animals. And that's really, that's very disconcerting. That process of genocide has started, and we see that mirrored in the type of speech and rhetoric and propaganda that is coming out of the government, that's coming out of the FARDC, that's coming out of civil society leaders. And that is inspiring the violence, especially, I think, since Banyamulenge are often labeled as invaders. Even just that term invaders kind of gives you pause and gives you this sense of, well, if they're invading, what is their intent? It has a very negative intent to it. And so it provides that undertone of fear, and we have to protect ourselves. And how we're going to protect ourselves is by pushing these people out, attacking them, making sure that they no longer have a home here and they have nowhere left to go.
Thanks a lot, Amber. What you have described is true, because we've seen both the humanization, we've seen stigmatization, we've seen all sort of exclusion, like calling Banyamulenge foreigners. By the way, when actually the Congo is the only country we know, they have been all those doing all those really. This is happening. This is actually actual. This is current. We're living this right now in Bibogobogo, especially. Even today, this morning, they actually reported attacks. Mai and Redi Tawara attack on the remaining people who were actually survivors of the first wave of the attack, which destroyed the villages. This morning, again, they reported those attacks, and they report actually that we have more than 9,000 people actually wandering, trying to get like from the middle plateau down to the shore of the lake. And can you imagine 9,000 people trying to move without food? Actually, they have taken everything. That means their cattle, their belongings, with children along, with women. And so it is a disastrous really situation. Talking about the disastrous situation, I'm going to ask a question to President Adele. I'll come back to you, Amber. Adele, I know that Mahoro Peace Association, we have been doing something to address the humanitarian consequences of what is happening exactly on the ground. So what can you say? What is the effort of Mahoro Peace Association since the genocide, which started back in 2017? What is Mahoro Peace doing to address the very plight of this genocide?
Yeah, thank you, Jacques. So I come in January 2020, when this ongoing conflict has already begun. And really the conflict intensified end of 2019, early 2020, up until now, as we speak. What's happened? We're talking about what has happened in Bibogobogo. So in 2020, when I first started, we had people, villages being destroyed in the whole plateau surrounding of Minembwe, Mibunda, Kamombo, Bijombo, and we started having a formation of IDP camps, internally displaced camps, one in Bikenke, in Kamombo, in Bijombo, and we had the remaining of people who didn't flee outside from the country to neighboring countries. All of them are besieged in Minembwe. And at that point, we had women who could not even travel 2 to 3 kilometers to go to their field or attend their field. Even if they had food to harvest, they couldn't really move because they were besieged and they're surrounded by mais. And you also had the FRDC who was not accompanying the women. In fact, we had women being killed when they tried to go to their field out of desperation, and even them being accompanied by the FARDC, the National Army, they were killed, actually mutilated before after being killed. And from that all women, all civilians were very terrified to even attempt to go to their field because of what has happened. And so people were kind of like staying in that humanitarian crisis. They couldn't access food. There was no road. You had international organization, which used to be in Minembwe and also Bijombo, packed up their things and left the country and left the area in fear of endangering their staff. So you had a humanitarian crisis and a security crisis going on without the eye of an international organization that is more equipped to deal with such large scale of displacement. And so when I came in, usually Mahoro used to intervene in advocacy, mostly here, but we were faced with this. Are we just gonna let people to starve as we continue to advocate? Because advocating takes time, if you can tell. This is a conflict that started in 2017, and we're still doing advocacy and nothing has changed. So are we gonna wait and let people to starve? We started gathering funds within our members, $20 a month. Everyone is able to, however everyone is able to give, and we would fly, the plane from Bukavu or Goma to Minembwe to drop off food in Minembwe Center so that people can at least have something to eat, even porridge. We also started registering a number of children who were having malnutrition. And this is unheard of for the Banyamulenge, who are primarily habitants of that area. We've never had issues with malnutrition. This is something you see on a UNICEF commercial here, but this is not certainly my experience coming from that region. We had cattle, we had milk, we had a source of protein, so we didn't really have to deal with malnutrition. But this time, because of this conflict, this was an issue, and it was almost like an abomination to the community. So what Mahoro started doing, started planting cuisines in different villages so that we can provide nutritious breakfast for children and older adults, like elderly. And we've been doing that up until now, and we continue to do it as we get donations. And so now we thought, you know what, this conflict is going to resolve eventually, but things continue to get worse and worse. And now in March and April, we saw a wave of mass displacement of villages in Kahororo, Rurambo, if I may say in general, which descended to Bwegera, Mutarule, Nyangezi, and all the plain is now full of internally displaced, mainly Banyamulenge who left the area. And the same thing happened. So we send out an alert, and I know that OCHA, which is the UN agency coordinating humanitarian organization in Eastern Congo, sent out alerts for organizations to be able to provide assistance in Bwegera. And thus far, we have only had Oxfam that came to aid, and they have only done one aid assistance, and that came after months of waiting. I want to say 6 months. But before that, you wonder who was at least feeding these people. It was the community still, right? It was the community that first had that flexibility to send whatever aid that we could have to aid all those displaced, over 4,000 people who were there in Bwegera. And now we have, and then shortly after that, we had another attack in Kamombo, which basically destabilized the whole village again, that was trying to rebuild again after 2019 attacks, which now the population moved from Kamombo to Bijombo, and they left with nothing. Again, we provided tents because they were living outside. They didn't have houses. I mean, they're leaving. They are going to Bijombo, where you had other people who were also had been attacked. Just constant attacks and burning of houses, and so you people have nowhere to put their head. So again, we're providing food assistance, tents, just to see if they people can just stay put. And shortly after that, now we have the Bibogobogo, which was relatively calm, and now we have over 4,000 people in one church in Baraka now. And then this morning, we also have heard that over 9,000 people who were left in Bibogobogo have also descended in fear of clash between the Mai Mais and also the FRDC, which have decided now to go handle the Mai Mai after the destruction. So All of the I've heard already reports of 200 kids being hospitalized from diarrhea and malaria. There was a mobile clinic that was trying to assist but had already left. It was only there for a week. Currently, as we speak, the people in the church are being fed by the community. You know, this is where, you know, for some of us are thinking, gosh, there's a complicity not just with our government, but also with the international community that's playing the same game as the government that's complicit with the Mai Mais and the rebels. But one was wonder. I understood the security and the inaccessibility of Minembwe in the whole plateau. I can understand that. But once you have a mass displacement of people leaving Minembwe, leaving Rulambo, leaving Bibogobogo, and descending to Baraka or Bogera, where you literally have a road, what is the reason not to intervene? What is the reason not to come to aid? So I started to wonder that there is a higher complicity than not just our government. The international organization is also taking reports that is probably inaccurate or complicit, and it's acting on it by not providing aid to Banyamulenge, which I also feel that that's another form of dehumanization, because if you're gonna humiliate people to starve and just, you know, die from malnutrition, it's another form of genocide. If you don't kill them by the bullet, you let them die by hunger. And either way, the Mai Mais and those who are backing Mai Mais are winning. Thank you.
Thanks, President Adele. We are witnesses being part of the team of Mahoro Peace Association. We've done tremendous work to try to address the issue of humanitarian crisis, which goes along with the genocide going on right now since 2017. And I really commend your leadership in that sense. We've seen actually the help that Mahoro is providing is not just meant for the Banyamulenge community. When we're talking about thousands of children in the Minembwe and Mikenke area getting porridge, like with nutrient to help them to address the malnutrition issue, we're talking about Banyamulenge, Bafulero, and Babembe, all the children in the center of Minembwe and Mikenke. It's very important to mention that. And it's very important also to mention that we're talking about the Banyamulenge community, which has been displaced from 3 territories. 95% of all Banyamulenge villages destroyed. That means almost 95% depending on aid. And as the president has just said, we don't have many organizations going to the ground and say, hand them some parcels to try to address the issue of humanitarian aid. So Mahoro has been leading the effort of humanitarian aid. And President Adele talked about the advocacy effort. We have been funding like inter-community meeting, Bafulero, Banyindu, Banyamulenge in the Rurambo area, Babembe, Banyamulenge in the Bibogobogo area. We are can proudly say as Mahoro Peace Association that if truly the place like Bibogobogo managed to stay peaceful and people cohabitating together, it's just because Mahoro played a key role in making sure that there is a constant talk between the communities. So thanks, your leadership has made it possible. You talked about the health crisis. Right now, children in hundreds are in the hospital suffering from cholera and other health issues, malaria, and so on. So I'm coming back to Dr. Freddy. I know that you have been a very close advisor to the displaced committee, especially regarding the health issues, providing them like the doctors, the nurses on the ground, providing them with key advices on how to manage such big crowd of people so that to avoid the kind of public health diseases. So can you tell us more about it, Dr. Freddy? What you have been doing or engaged in terms of addressing the health crisis on the ground where in the displacement camp?
First, let's mention that war has been an important factor in the public health crisis around the world. First, because the indicators of health are also closely related, or the social determinants of health are closely related to the well-being of the population. When you leave your house and you start living in a tent, you face not only just extreme poverty, but also poor sanitation. You don't get proper water. You don't get the toilets are not well managed, and so the risk of contaminations and cyclic contamination, cross contaminations, all those issues occurred because of war. Then there is just the promiscuity, being together, being all in a very small area during a time of COVID. Today, we're talking about more than 2,000 people living in Mushimbake in the church. Some in the church, some even sleep outside the church. These people, the last thing they worry about is COVID. You know, social distancing is not even a concept for them. They worry. There are so many things to worry about that what we worry about here in America is nonsense for them. So we've been providing health education, first of all, but making sure that whenever there is displacement like that, we rush. The first money we get is to make sure we set up toilets. We bring proper clean water and enough water. Sometimes it's not even just a matter of clean water. It's also enough water to have people take shower, clean whatever they have to clean. And then there is an issue with medicine. This is a big issue in the Congo, where you go to the hospital, you're hospitalized, admitted in the hospital, but you have to buy medicine from outside to come and be administered in the hospital. So the doctor comes and writes a prescription and leaves it at your bedside. And then a member of the family will come and pick up the prescription, go to the pharmacy, buy the drugs, and bring them to your bedside so the nurses can inject or administer in any way, any form. So this becomes even a bigger issue where there is a mass displacement like that. So we try to provide medications, and we provide our own doctors or healthcare providers of any level whenever possible. And so it's a combination of so many things, but it's all directed or dictated by the needs, the area, and what the risks that we assess. However, the most important common ones is sanitation, water, shelters, all those being primary social determinants of health. Thank you.
Thanks, Doctor. And all this has been happening under the watchful eye of the Congolese government, which we said, especially the FRDC, which is the National Army, helping the very militias to destroy villages from Banyamulenge villages. Unfortunately, the UN stabilization mission MONUSCO didn't do much to prevent that kind of mass displacement. And one can see clearly that there is need to protect the Banyamulenge. Which kind of protection would you suggest in this case, which may be relevant to the situation of the Banyamulenge minority in Congo? Dr. Freddy.
So there is a responsibility to protect here. And such enactment of such statement will require a few things, but all those things are visible and are obvious in the Congo. So before we move to that level, let's analyze the situation. When we talk about genocide, people may think that it's an exaggeration because when we talk about genocide, we remember the Jewish genocide that took 6 million people. We remember the Rwandese genocide, the Rwandan genocide that took 1 million people. But it's not, the genocide or the term genocide is not about the number of people that die. It's about the intention. And the 4 elements of the genocide are first of all, the target. It has to be a group of people belonging to a particular national, ethnical, racial, or religious group. So that's the first element. There has to be a target. The second is the intent. The perpetrator has to intend to destroy in whole or in part that group of people. The third is the conduct. It has to take a place in such a context of manifest pattern of similar conduct directed against that particular group. And it has to be, that the perpetrator has to be well aware of that intent and that context, which all those things are happening in the Congo. There is a group of people that are being targeted. They're being targeted because they belong to a certain ethnic group. That ethnic group is easily identifiable by their facial expression, their face, or how they look like. They're Tutsi in a country that is mostly populated by non-Tutsi. So, and they kill us with the intention to destroy us, to remove us from the country. There is a very well-known campaign of dehumanization, stability. Sorry, there is a clear. Sorry. There's a clear campaign of dehumanization, like Amber said, stigmatization, exclusion. We feel stateless right now. And so based on that statelessness, there is a responsibility to protect. The world is going to wake up one day and feel sorry like they did in Rwanda because they failed to act when it was time to act. People don't wake up until it's late or it's too late. Right now, for the entire Banyamulenge population, 90% is outside their land. They're either in IDP camps or in foreign countries. Why doesn't the government of the United States think of so many people, so many Banyamulenge in the United States? Why did we come up here? How did we end up here? That's a fact. Why do we have Banyamulenge refugee camp in Burundi, in Uganda, in Nairobi, in Kenya? So many of them in so many different provinces. And we have internally displaced people camp in Bwegera, in Mutarure, in Bijombo, in Mikenke, in Baraka, in Lueba, in Rusenda. All those are signs that it's a wake-up call that the government should wake up. Another very important element is that there is a failure by the government to do anything. For so long, we thought the government was just weak because there are so many other issues that are not addressed. The government is chronically and pathologically incompetent. However, it's more than that. There is another element that adds to that incompetence, that weakness of the government. It's the collusion. There is very many documentation by well-known, well-reputed organizations that the regular army, FRDC, is arming, providing logistical and technical support to the Mai Mai to destroy Banyamulenge villages. These reports are not written by Mahoro. These reports are not written by the Banyamulenge. They're written by the UN. The UN has those reports, yet they have not acted upon them. So the silence is another killer. People are dying because those who could have taken the decision are not taking the decision. And they will wake up one day, it will be a little too late. They won't have so much to do other than just observe and make documentation of what happened.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Freddy. Too late indeed, too late. Things has been going south for the Banyamulenge community. 90%, 90+% of their villages destroyed, but the UN, despite different reports written by its own staff, is reluctant to recognize that the Banyamulenge minority of the Democratic Republic of Congo is really in danger of extinction. And they are failing to protect the Banyamulenge. So I'm coming back to Amber. Amber, why is United Nations not learning from its past mistake and still reluctant not to recognize that the Banyamulenge are undergoing a genocide, and they don't even make a move toward protecting them? Why is the international community not recognizing the danger which is facing, even though its own staff are reporting that? Amber.
Yes, the question about, why hasn't the UN learned from its mistakes? I don't have a specific answer for that, because it seems almost, it seems like a no-brainer to me. We understand, we see the steps, we see the processes of genocide occurring against the Banyamulenge in the Congo. So it seems to me that the UN, I think, is almost just at a loss as what to do. And I think that's kind of how the international community feels, honestly. I think particularly within the United States, but the international community at large, they look at Congo and they see the myriad of issues that are ongoing. And there's almost just this gut reaction to just throw up your hands and say, it's too messed up. What are we going to do? What can we do? And what we can do is going to be too little, so why even try? And I think that's the sad reality of the situation. So I think that we have to make the international community, make the United States government and governments of other countries understand the dire situation that the Banyamulenge, and make them understand that throwing up your hands and saying the area of the world is too messed up, it doesn't work. That's not going to, turning a blind eye is not going to prevent the atrocities, and it's not it's inhumane to turn a blind eye on what's going on. The United States and other countries have done that throughout history with genocides, and we always say, well, next time we won't turn a blind eye, next time we will aid, but then next time often doesn't happen, and it comes too late. And so I think it's going to take all of us, the Banyamulenge, still living within Congo to as much the extent as they can, the diaspora community, human rights advocates, and just everyday people, civilians, all coming together and saying enough is enough, and putting as much pressure on high-level offices as we possibly can. The UN, unfortunately, started off as a wonderful idea back when it was founded in the 1940s, but it has become so bogged down with bureaucracy that it has become ineffective. But it is still the only sort of international governance option that we have. So the question becomes, how do we best leverage that to bring change and peace to the region and protect the people who need it most? As far as what I think the international community can do, is, there has been a drawdown of MONUSCO troops. And unfortunately, as kind of ineffective as MONUSCO has been, a drawdown is only going to leave those living within, particularly the Haut Plateau, in a more precarious situation. And so rather than a drawdown, there does need to be an increase in MONUSCO troops, or at least bases around these areas, and a stronger mandate so they can actively protect the population. And unfettered and protected access, humanitarian access. Adele talked about humanitarian organizations saying, well, the situation is just too unstable and it's too unsafe for us to provide assistance. While that, in one sense, I understand that, at the same time, these aid organizations operate in some of the harshest and most dangerous places, conflict-wise, in the world. So that, to me, seems slightly like an excuse. And there are ways to be able to deliver the necessary aid to the population and still keep it, safe, by their standards. I'm sorry, but maybe I'm incorrect in saying this, but the humanitarian aid organizations that are operating in places like Afghanistan right now, who are being targeted by the regime, or Syria, these are all places that the conflict feels, I think maybe, or at least the areas in which they're going to, they're all conflict zones, but perhaps, yes, the aid organizations might be targeted by Mai or Red Tabara, but I don't know how likely it is that they are to be shelled by these militias like they might be in other locations around the world, yet they're still going into those locations. So why are they not going into the Haut Plateau? And if protection, like a pathway, is not an option, either being protected by MONUSCO or another African country that's willing to send troops to protect that pathway, if that's not an option, there can be aid drops. They can have helicopters take aid and drop off food aid, medical aid, and physicians. And then it's going to take a lot of more strategic, I think, high level and bilateral talks. The US has done absolutely nothing on, when we talk about the government side. We've done a lot for, potentially putting money into Congo, but they've done nothing for the Banyamulenge and protecting the Banyamulenge. And so I think it's going to take all of us working together to really pressure the people at the top, while also working with those on the ground to raise up civil society to be able to, speak for themselves. And it's going to take all of us to be able to end these atrocities.
Yeah, it's going to take all of us to end mass atrocities. That's true, especially in a closed world right now, which has become a village. Killing somebody in Congo, some of the places it's actually live mainstream. So what we're doing right here, it's being watched in Congo or in Minembwe or wherever. So we need exactly to come together, and that's why Mahoro Peace Association, Crane Center, and other partners are coming together to increase exactly the awareness of what is happening on the ground. Say, no, enough is enough. Congo belongs to everybody. We can live together. Congo is big, a very big country in which all the community can live together in harmony and cohabitating as Congolese. We're coming back together to President Adele. I know that Mahoro Peace Association wrote a letter to the international community and the UN requesting exactly, or suggesting, putting forward some concerns about what is going on the ground, and suggesting key points on what we think can be a way forward to protect the Banyamulenge minority. Can you tell us more about your suggestion about Banyamulenge protection in the Democratic Republic of the Congo? President Adele?
Yeah, thank you, Jacques. So, the advocacy that we have been doing, it's been ongoing again since the conflicts erupted, and slowly we started off as something that was going to be just alerting governments that is responsible enough to take decisive actions to stop the escalation of violence. But year after year, we're seeing that the violence is getting worse and worse, and the government is becoming slow to act. Very little action we have seen on the side of the government or the international community, particularly the MONUSCO. And now that we have seen that the FRDC has been shamelessly involved in the violence against Banyamulenge, handing off over ammunition to Mai, strategically planning attacks against an IDP camp, and also helping Mai together, looting cattle and splitting the cattle. And to basically, it has almost become like the new blood diamond, where they steal cattle from the civilians, and it's becoming like an economic war for them. And so we have tried, along with Crane and other organizations, to really alert the American government. We have held different briefings with different institutions, mainly the Congress in the House, as well as the Senate, the State Department, and some at the UN level as well. And we've been asking them to speak to to their counterparts in Congo, President Tshisekedi, to do more to protect the Banyamulenge, especially since we're so worried that this is turning into to the minimum, an ethnic cleansing, but now it has become, a slow genocide, because you see the intent when you have Bitakwira and Martin Fayulu calling out for protests or to exterminate the Banyamulenge. We have basically raised our voice to anyone that we can possibly speak to, who is in power to do something. And I just mentioned the U.S. government, at the UN, And just recently, we met with the president himself and President Felix Tshisekedi, where we, mainly our conversation was surrounding this issue. And I came out of the meeting feeling that he had no plan to really address this issue. And he knew all of these things that we're speaking. He didn't deny or deflect or anything. He acknowledged that these things are happening to the Banyamulenge. He acknowledged that his military is colliding with Mai and rebel groups, and he just threw his hands in the air and said, oh, well, that's the army that I inherited, while people are continuing to die. So all of these combined, the fact that we have spoken to every key person that we can speak to who is able to do something about this violence, and we have gotten nowhere. We wrote a letter to the UN because, again, this is the international governance that can actually do something if the government is not able to protect or act decisively, is that they need to enact a responsibility to protect and give this new mandate to MONUSCO to be able to give a special protection to a minority group that is at the verge of extinction. And I say this, it's not a light decision, and I know how bureaucratic the MONUSCO can be, but this is really the last option that we have, because now we have, in Bibogobogo, again, we just said over 3,500 people cramped in one church, and we have over 9,000 remaining descending, joining them in Baraka in that church. And they cannot go outside because when they go outside, they are stoned. They were stoned as they were coming into Baraka, and they're stoned as they try to go outside to even just cook a meal. And they have to be guarded by the MONUSCO, the police, and the army. But again, these are the people who don't even trust the army to protect them, because again, they're colliding with Mai Mais. What we are asking the UN is that to change the mandate. You can send as many troops as you want, but if their interventions is still as the same as it was in 2019, we're going to end up with massacres. Again, we've had this. We are learning from past experience. I come from the Gatumba massacre experience, where a whole camp, 166 people were massacred in the middle of a night. And this camp was guarded by the UN peacekeeping in Burundi. And the mandates that they give these peacekeeping missions are not nearly enough to protect people who are so targeted. The MONUSCO cannot shoot if they're not shot at by the Mai Mais. In fact, in Baraka, when they were stoning the women who are trying to cook outside, the MONUSCO would run inside the church with them, because they cannot shoot at the population that is intoxicated with hate, who are stoning the Banyamulenge displaced people in Baraka. So the MONUSCO needs a new mandate. If you're going to keep the MONUSCO there to protect civilians, first, the MONUSCO is so dependent at the government of Congo, and it's not independent as it used to be anymore, because they basically work hand in hand. And if the Congolese government is aiding Mai Mais and handing out ammunition, and you still in a partner to solve the issues, I mean, it's just going to be a circle, right? A cycle of violence. The MONUSCO is basically propping the Congolese government to continue doing whatever it's doing, and it cannot stop them. So what we are asking is that the Banyamulenge are at the verge. If they were not killed, now they're in displacement camp across South Kivu, and they cannot stay in those camps alone without a proper protection, because they will be attacked in the camp and killed just like in Gatumba. So the MONUSCO needs a new mandate that's going to be given to protect minority, and they have to be given the mandate to take an offense, because if the Mai Mais attack the camp, the MONUSCO cannot do anything. They can just watch and observe. If they're shot at, they then can shoot back at the rebels. But if they just come in and they kill and they massacre everyone, well, we're just going to have a report. And so that's what we've been asking for at this point, because that's where we are, unfortunately.
Thanks a lot, President Adele. Just in conclusion, 2 minutes, Dr. Freddy, can you address a little bit in 2 minutes as a conclusion, talk a little bit about the lack of political will and how we can shake the international community to make sure that they move toward resolving the issue of security in South Kivu. Dr. Freddy.
There is clearly a lack of political will to resolve this issue. But again, when you think about political will, there are three elements. One is the understanding of the issue. Does the government understand the magnitude of the issue? Do they have the same understanding as we, the victim, understand the issue? Or is there another rhetoric or narrative that they're being fed? That's a big issue because President Tshisekedi has surrounded himself with extremists. And those people are on his ears all the time. We don't have access to his ears to give him our version of the story, of the facts that are on the ground. So there is possibility of change of story as it rises the hierarchy to get to him. So understanding of the issue is a number one core element of the political will. The second is committed to support or commitment to support. Is he committed to the issue? That's also questionable because if you don't understand, it's hard to commit. And at that point, you wonder whether he has that commitment to support the people that are being victims or to even resolve the issue as it stands. And at that point, you can think of, is there any interest for him in resolving this issue? Does he have an immediate interest? And second, is this issue a danger to him? Or is there an immediate risk to the regime if the issue is not resolved? No, nothing at all. It doesn't do anything to his regime. It's not an immediate danger. So there is no reason pushing him to resolve the issue. So he can leave the situation as is, and it will not affect his regime in any way. The last one is, are they incentives like political pressure from outside, from Western world countries, European Union, United States, the United Nations, or regional organizations like East African Community? Or is there any pressure from outside or human rights organizations that would push him to resolve this issue? That's the only place that we have that we can put requests for some pressure to have him resolve this issue. But otherwise, all the elements of political will are failing in the Congo. Actually, another sad truth is that the closer we get to the election, the tougher he's going to portray himself against us to gain the votes of those extremists in the eastern part of the republic. And so it's only going to get worse. We are the low-hanging fruit in this election. He can easily get votes in the east by portraying himself as tough on the Banyamulenge people and non-supportive of the Banyamulenge people. Election-wise, he cannot afford right now to show any weak side or any compassion to the Banyamulenge. And this I want people to understand. Things are going to get worse because he cannot afford to lose those votes in the east. And so the only hope we have is to make sure that the Western countries, the organizations, human rights organizations, or these other country international organizations understand that they have to put pressure on him on the basis of humanitarian and human rights to resolve this issue. Otherwise, there is no political will.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Freddy. Amber, do you have something to say just as part of the conclusion? Just 1 minute, please.
Sure. You know, as I stated before, and as Freddie just kind of reiterated, it's going to take all of us. We cannot operate in sort of silos, you know, in separate groups. It's going to take all of us putting that pressure on Tshisekedi and putting pressure on the elected officials in the countries in which we live to really hammer home the necessity of political will and you know, leveraging the fact that human rights is incredibly important and needs to be at the top of Tshisekedi's sort of diplomatic list if he wants the support of Western governments as he seeks re-election. And I guess I would also just like to say that no one deserves to be in the situation in which the Banyamulenge find themselves. All of us who are not Banyamulenge should stand with you, stand with your community, and should take up this this effort alongside you and raise up your community's voices. And I am very honored to be here this afternoon with you all and to work alongside you. And I believe that we all together will be able to make a difference. So thank you.
Thanks a lot, Amber. Adele, just a word for conclusion, and then we'll stop our discussion today. Adele?
Yeah, thank you. Well, I just want to implore everyone who just followed this live stream about the dire situation, the humanitarian situation that the people in the Haut Plateau, South Kivu, in Eastern Democratic of Congo are undergoing at this point. Many the Banyamulenge who are targeted, and this is why you're not hearing it from the news, because this is a community that is stigmatized, that is dehumanized, that then does not deserve your compassion. And it is, all this is going in the dark, it's going on in the dark, and that's why you're not hearing about it. So if you're our members here in the States, or you just a friend of ours, or you're just hearing about it, I would ask you to, you know, you can reach out to us to learn more about some of the things that you can do to intervene. One by advocating to your local representative or senator to have their support on this issue. Another way is through donations, so that we can continue to help people with humanitarian first aid, food, shelter, and also medical support. So thank you so much for following us, and again, stay engaged. Thank you.
Thanks, Adele. Dear followers, we thank you again for following us today, our debate today. We are about to end our broadcast right now, and we just remind you that the situation in Congo is dire, as the President Adele has just said. You need to do something. Congo is a big country. What we dream about, what we advocate for, is the restoration of peace in Congo for all the communities. We're dreaming that one day the Banyamulenge, the Bafulero, the Babembe, and all communities in South Kivu and in Congo in general, we will be living in peace, with dignity, with respect to human rights, and all of us will share what the nature or God has given us in that rich and beautiful country. Thanks again for following us. We'll be meeting next time.